So I think that's the, and please help yourselves at any point to refreshments that we have over here. But what I thought I would do is we will go around the room and we'll start with our guests from the CDMRP. They'll tell you a little bit about themselves and the role they play in the program. And we'll start with Colonel Dalal.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. Hi, everybody. My name is Stephen Dalal, and I'm director at CDMRP. I assumed my position this summer from Wanda Salazar. A lot of you probably remember Wanda. Wanda is now at the Uniformed Services University, and she has a position there. I've been in the military biomedical research community, active duty, for about 25 years, and my background academically is I went to Iowa State University undergrad, and I went there for veterinary school, and I joined the Army, and then I did a lab animal residency, MPH, and so a lot of my work in labs were in the S&T labs. I worked at Plum Island. I worked at a lot of the different labs, either directly supporting research or involved in kind of doing research, whether it was animal models, preclinical animal models, GLP studies, and such. And so that was kind of my entrance into the research, and I really love research. And so all my assignments have kind of been in that area. And then in the military, you have a choice. You could stay just being a scientist, or you could do some other jobs. And so probably for the last 15 years, I've kind of done more management, where you're actually in a field called acquisition. So I'm an acquisition officer and medical acquisition officer. So it's really focused then on clinical trials, the development of drugs, therapeutics, vaccines, medical devices, knowledge products. Some of them are non-material, some of them are, a lot of them are material. And so I've really spent a lot of my time on that side of the house. A significant time working chem biodefense medical countermeasures. And I really enjoy this area very much. This was, to get to be the director at CDMRP, it's a very highly coveted position in the DoD. It's a competitive selection amongst the services. And so Wanda Salazar, she was an Air Force officer, and so I'm Army, so maybe the next one would be a Navy. And it's just kind of how they'll rotate, how the services will do that. But it's an honor to be here to talk to you today. When Mark reached out to and contacted me, I felt that I wanted to have my team with you, and we thought it might be easier to have it here as opposed to have everyone independently try and come up to Fort Detrick. So again, it's an honor to be here. and my job at CDMRP is really to support all the PMs. Who are you going to hear from today? Gail and Becky. They're kind of the senior bosses, and so a lot of the program managers and science officers all report to these two. And they have a lot of years at CDMRP, and they'll describe that. So my job is to really ensure that everyone in the organization has what they need to do the job, and I try and remove any obstacles as the best of my ability, and then work outside CDMRP, whether it's with the Army, whether it's with the Defense Health Agency, whether it's doing congressional visits, those types of things. And so again, I'll be here at CDMRP probably for the next 3 to 4 years, and it's an honor. And with that, I'll turn it over.
Hi everyone, my name is Gail Vadai. I'm the program manager for the breast cancer research program at CDMRP. I've been doing that for over 12 years now, and been at CDMRP for 13 years. I started out with the prostate cancer program as a grants manager, science officer, and then transitioned into a program manager position. Over the years, I've been actually supporting many programs, just covering others, and so I have a pretty broad knowledge of all the programs, particularly those that are the CSI programs, cancers, neurological diseases. And so having been there for this long, I've seen all these new programs come along, sometimes branch out of the older or umbrella programs. So it's been really rewarding to see that, and I know that a lot of that are the efforts of the DHRC, so thank you all for your efforts. And I've gotten to know some members of the DHRC. I'm very close with Carolyn Best, and I communicated with her, and I know she's at the PCF meeting this week, and got to know Anthony Hardy as well when I supported the Gulf War on this program. So, even though the breast cancer program is somewhat of a standalone program, I am quite familiar with your organization and appreciate all of your efforts. So at CDMRP, in my role as not just as a program manager for the breast cancer program, but as the program lead for most of the CSI programs. So those are the congressional special interest programs. that are not necessarily military focused. These are the cancer programs, the neurological diseases. And so I am the program lead for those, and I work very closely with those program managers. I'm sure all of you are familiar with your points of contact, so all of those folks I work very closely with. That includes Dr. Pat Modrow, who manages the peer-reviewed medical research program, as we've seen that balloon into a really big program, and I know many of the topics came out of the efforts of this group. So I can speak to that program. I would never be able to speak as well as Dr. Modrow to it, but I'm very familiar with any topics as well. So I think one of the things I want to point out is that because of the years that we've been able to continue with the congressional support, we've seen a lot of success. We're constantly asked, what are the products, what have you accomplished, and that doesn't just go for the longer standing cancer programs, but also for the newer programs. Some of them have been around for about a decade. So we answer those tough questions of what have you done with this money. So we hope that we're doing a good job with conveying that to our constituents and with our advocacy groups who support us and go to the Hill. But know that we have seen products transition from very early stage research ideas in the infancy into clinical trials and even approved to save lives, and particularly in the breast and the prostate and the ovarian cancer programs. So we hope that that's going to continue and spread into the other programs as all the programs have their own missions, their own visions, but we have one goal in mind, and that is to save lives and impact lives and improve the lives of those suffering from these conditions. So we hope we'll be able to provide any information you need. And again, I would not be able to speak for all the program managers who I work with very closely, but I hope I'll be able to convey, at least in a general sense, how much your efforts mean to us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, following Gail, it's a little hard, right? So she and I have been at CDMRP probably about the same amount of time. Becky Fisher, sorry. I'm Becky Fisher. I'm actually a program management lead along with Gail. She and I oversee, kind of help enable the program managers to do their job. So as part of that leadership team at CDMRP. So like I said, I've been at CDMRP since 2005. I have a degree in toxicology from University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, and so I came with my husband, who actually worked with the Army's Research Institute of Infectious Diseases initially, to Frederick, Maryland, and I originally worked for the National Cancer Institute, so I had this research background, and coming out of a postdoc and looking kind of for some other opportunities, I landed at CDMRP in more of a support role, supporting programmatic reviews for our programs. Did that for a number of years, and sort of have been a jack of all trades, worked with many different programs, breast cancer, supported that for a number of years, supported the Psych Health Traumatic Brain Injury Program when that stood up in 2007, and have worked with the lung cancer program, our ALS program, our Gulf War illness, so a number of the different areas really involved, and it's so exciting to see the engagement from the consumer communities in these programs. That's what drives all of us in what we do every day. So it's incredibly important. We take the mission very seriously. So yes, so I've sort of evolved in my roles, and now, as a program manager and program management lead, I oversee a lot of the work that we do that very directly aligns with our core DoD areas, and we provide a lot of support. In fact, through our CSI programs, we leverage those to work with the DoD core research areas. And then we provide some support directly to the core areas in addition to that CSI program management. So, as I said, we couldn't do what we do without your support, and we very much take this mission seriously, and we look to try to better, I think in the coming year, do a little more outreach and education for the research community on what we're looking for, and I saw some of the questions that had been submitted, and that was one of the interests. So how we can better do that. We have our website, which is a really valuable resource. We're looking to improve that, and we appreciate feedback on those kind of things. So if there are things that you would like to see us do differently or have represented there, I think that's valuable feedback to have. In fact, on the website, we actually have a little feedback form, so that's something that I encourage you to use. We're trying to figure out ways to do that. We don't have the names of our program managers public, and that's part of a DoD policy. But if you submit something through our public affairs contact information on the website, we'll absolutely get back to you. So that's one good way to share that people can provide input on stakeholders, input on review of recommendations, other things, just general questions. I would encourage you to contact them. So I'm trying to think of some of the other questions, but we're here for you today, and really looking forward to talking with each of you. Thank you.
Great.
And I'm a little different. I am not a CDMRP employee. My name is Dale Vanderham, and I do have to have a disclaimer. I am a contractor. I am contracted to the headquarters of the U.S. Army Medical Research and Material Command, of which CDMRP is one of our main components. So I'm in the headquarters, and my position, for the last 16 years, I've been a senior scientist and congressional coordinator, or congressional advisor. As a contractor, I advise the senior leaders, end up working with Mark Veith or other lobbyists, or congressional questions that come in. I'm the staff officer to go out and get the answers. Go to Gail, go to Becky, go to Colonel Dalal or their staff, get some stuff in, put the answers together, staff them through our senior leaders, and then they go back up to Congress. So, and you guys give your history. I was an active duty Army officer in 1992 and 93 when we stood up the CDMRP program in headquarters. So I've been somehow affiliated with it on and off for its entire existence.
Wow.
So it's over half of my adult life has been dedicated to this mission. So it's new. One thing I would say that I see from these three people, Colonel Dalal kind of captures it, the passion that I see in the researchers, both in the CDMRP, in our Army Corps programs, our Navy and our Air Force Corps research programs, where it's a real driving factor, and that's what keeps a lot of us, that like myself, that retired from the Army, we come back to the family because of the drive and the joy and the feeling of doing that. So thank you. I'm here to listen to a lot. One of the things that helps me as a congressional coordinator is when final language ever ends up in a bill, there's times when it helps me if the lobbyist shares the white paper that helped drive it. Right. Then I can work with our congressional liaisons that'll officially speak on behalf of the government, and we can kind of understand the congressional intent. And it may not be what the lobbyists want or what the association wants. It may be what the congressional professional staff and whoever the senator or representative was that sponsored that, or multiple. But there's wisdom in many counselors.
Yes.
So
Yes.
part of my job to help CDMRP is gathering these tidbits of information along with the language that shows up to help them shape the language they take into their vision setting meetings, so they can try to meet everybody's needs. Not everybody's itch will get scratched,
Right.
but we do the best. One other thing I will say is, when we talk about congressional special interest funds, the bulk of the military medical congressional special interest programs are managed at CDMRP, but they are not all managed at CDMRP. There are a few specialized programs that have a real interest in a certain area. There are an advanced development of a medical product, or military product or something, and so I help coordinate some of those that do not come to CDMRP also. There's a handful of those. While we have an earmarked moratorium, my job is easier. In 2009 and 2010, we were managing about 300 earmarks along with the CDMRP program. That made it very interesting to seek out which university, which company. We'd get a vague clue from the congressional offices, and if I didn't know who the lobbyist was, I would make a cold call to a university and go to ask for the head of their research department, introduce myself, and then tactfully work my way through to find out what the story was behind the story. So,
Right, right.
so thank you. I enjoy being here. It helps me help them.
Great.
So I'm mostly in a receiving mode, and listening, but I also play good cop, bad cop if we get into territory to protect my commanding general and Colonel Dalal, then I'll take the hit. So.
Great, thanks, Dale. Now we can start with our members, and David,
Yeah.
you get to go first.
David Epstein, I'm Director of Government Relations for the National Alliance for Eye and Vision Research. I worked 10 years ago with former Congressman Jim Moran's office to create the Vision Research Program when it was still across the parking lot, as Robert Reed used to say,
Yes.
with Patrick.
Yes, yes.
And then when they
Yeah.
moved over to CDMRP, which probably made sense, we followed it with him. I've been working on the issue for 10 years. The program has grown from the original 4 million to we got 20 million this year, so we've grown it. I actually did programmatic reviews for the VRP the first 2 funding cycles, which was definitely a new thing in my wheelhouse to read grants and try to relate that to the original goals of the program that's Congress created. But it was fun, it was challenging, and then the rules on lobbyists sitting on programmatic review panels changed, so I was great, given my plaque and thanks for the service. It was a lot of fun, and I still enjoy working with VRP and people up at CDMRP. Now it's Dr. Wang who's taken over. I guess Ray Santulo is still
Yes.
involved.
Yes, he is.
Horacio Santulo,
Yes.
I like to call him. So that's what I do.
Katie.
I'm Katie Noveria. I'm here representing the Children's Tumor Foundation, and we work most closely with the Neurofibromatosis Research Program. Before coming to the private sector, I most recently worked on the House Energy and Commerce Committee, and I was doing biomedical research work more on the NIH side, so it's neat now to be able to work on the DoD side and work on CDMRP. So thanks for being here today.
Great. And we have several Katies in our.
Katie Van Landingham. I represent the Neurofibromatosis Network and also the Melanoma Research Foundation, and then a couple of clients who are interested in the reconstructive transplantation.
Ray Wiesek with the International Myeloma Foundation. We actually were just working with LLS on returning myeloma and other blood cancers to the list, which we were successful in last year, and then also hopefully continuing this year. And so we're obviously very interested in the peer-reviewed cancer research program.
Quadricus Driscoll, American Urological Association, Government Relations. I've been lobbying on behalf of the CDMRPs for the last 7 years. Been involved in health policy, worked on Hill at some point in my life, and now I'm in-house lobbyist for the AUA, where obviously the CDMRPs is one of our priorities.
Sarah Moberg, I'm with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and as Ray mentioned, we've been working on the peer-reviewed cancer research program to continue to have blood cancers as a topic area, which is important across all blood cancer spectrums. We appreciate you being here.
Patrick Kavanaugh, the Bladder Cancer Advocacy Network. Bladder cancer has been funded in the last couple of years, so we've been working with you through there.
Stephanie Chisholm, I'm the Director of Education and Research at the Bladder Cancer Advocacy Network. We do some smaller grants, which we hope gives the impetus to go on to you all for some bigger grants with some data. But we're very appreciative of all the efforts that you've made to include bladder cancer on the list of diseases. So thank you.
Abram Bielauskas, ALS Association, we for the ALS rep. We had a chance to talk, so before you again.
And I'll follow Abram. Elbridge Proctor with Lung Cancer Alliance. We were first to get here, so we kind of started a little bit ahead of the group. But just to say that Lung Cancer Alliance actually helped to establish the Lung Cancer Research Program pipeline within the CDMRP. For those of you who don't know, a focus for us this year was trying to restore the funding level back to its 20 million original levels. We were not successful in the final package, and so this will continue to be a focus of ours for next year. And I just share that in case some of you share in the goals of restoring or increasing your line items for next year. We would like to work with you.
Yeah. Great, thanks, Elbridge.
My name is Amanda Garzon. I'm with the Hydrocephalus Association. I think we're relatively one of the newcomers in the room. We were brought on about 3 years ago on the CDMRP, which is very exciting for us. And we do something very similar. We do small investment seed grants to our scientists in the hopes that they will then qualify for larger grants through CDMRP, and we've been successful recently in 3 grants. And so we're really excited for our medical condition, which is really still fighting to get on the map. It's really exciting to have access for our scientists to these types of opportunities because they're doing some really incredible, impactful research right now. And hydrocephalus not only affects the entire age spectrum, but it can also develop it from traumatic brain injury. So
we have a lot of interest in crossover in the military community, so I'm really grateful to be here at this meeting that you all joined us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm Megan Slater. I'm with the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. Pancreatic cancer has been included in the peer-reviewed cancer research program since 2011, and we've spent a lot of time as an organization investigating in scientists funding our own grants and as we see in the field. I am Danielle Deputy, the Connect from my Loma Foundation, and I think Sarah and Ray already kind of covered our involvement with the program. I'm Emily Conley with the Global Health Technologies Coalition. We're a group of about 30 nonprofit research centers, academic institutions, and aligned businesses that work on to accelerate the development of new drugs, vaccines, diagnostics for global health. So interested in some of the global health applications under the CDMRP.
Hi, Drew Salins with Zero the End of Prostate Cancer. Prostate cancer at the CDMRP has been the organization's top legislative priority since about 1997, and will continue to be so because of the great work that you all have done. The work that's been done has changed the lives of our patients, and we want to continue supporting the CDMRP. I believe the line item is now back at where it was in 2001, and so we're really good.
I'm Brittany Meyer with the Michael J. Fox Foundation. We support the Parkinson's Research Program, which is at about $16 million, and the Fox Foundation funds in the range of $90 to $100 million a year in Parkinson's research.
Hi, I'm Leslie Ritter. I'm Senior Director of Federal Government Relations with the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. We support the CDMRPs as a whole, but particularly support the MS research program. I have been instructed by some of our advocates to relay thank you for their opportunities to serve on the peer review process. They really love that opportunity. It really it kind of showcases the work of the society and how we are working through our research, alongside NIH research to really kind of see what research, which fits which program best to kind of get the driven results that people are looking for. So thank you for taking the time to be here.
Great. Did we get everybody? Did we miss anybody? I think so. There are 41 organizations that are part of this consortium, so I think more than half of them are represented here today. And again, I'd like to keep this really relatively informal.